When did we start going wrong? Give my dar back to me. I didn't have the energy to go to the bedroom, so I quietly slept on the living room sofa that night. A few days later, my son-in-law, Andrew, visited me before heading to work.
It's almost over.
Leaving those words behind, Andrew headed to work. His unusually firm tone gave me a sense of unease, but I didn't think much of it. That night, my husband David came home and headed straight to the bathroom without saying a word. I no longer felt anything towards his back. Even though our relationship was so cold due to the layout of the houses, I still had to sleep in the same room. I quietly entered the bedroom after David fell asleep. However, I couldn't fall asleep, even with my eyes closed. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, as the clock struck midnight. At that moment, I felt someone's presence in the room. With my heart pounding, I opened my eyes and saw Andrew standing there. Why? Ignoring my question, Andrew pulled me out of bed and forcibly pushed me into the closet. He then squeezed in with me and closed the door just enough to see the room. What's going on?
Keep quiet.
Andrew silenced me with one hand, and I couldn't help but comply. He quietly watched the room through the crack in the door.
It's almost time.
I didn't know what we were waiting for, but I complied with him. A few minutes later, something happened. What? I gasped at the clear and eerie change in the bedroom, unable to do anything but watch. People prefer happy endings over sad ones. A conclusion where no one is missing and everyone is smiling happily. But does a story where everyone is happy even exist? Isn't someone's happiness always accompanied by someone else's misfortune? This is the story of my happy ending.
Happy birthday, Mom.
I am Stephanie, and I am turning 57 this year. At this age, it's normal not to remember your own age. But I do because my daughter Emily always congratulates me thoughtfully every year. This year, she gave me a beautiful fountain pen, something I can use regularly as I work full-time. Last year, it was a purse.
And this is from me. Happy birthday.
Emily, who has grown up so kind, has a husband. His name is Andrew, a former colleague of Emily's. Andrew is quiet and often seems a bit absent-minded. When she first introduced him as her boyfriend, to be honest, I was a little worried. However, I gradually realized that the way he looks at Emily is full of kindness, and he can truly be there for others, which reassured me a lot. Even now, though he speaks a bit hesitantly, the present he handed over was carefully wrapped, and inside was a lovely scarf. Andrew is very polite and also a very kind person. I am happy to be surrounded by such wonderful people. Thank you, both of you. I'll cherish it.
Thank you too. And guess what? I bought a cake, so let's eat it soon.
I'll cut it.
Thanks, honey. Okay, Mom, sit right here.
The cake was neatly divided into 4 pieces. Yes, we are not a family of 3. As Andrew was distributing the cake onto plates, the living room door opened.
You guys are noisy.
Dad. Hi. It's Mom's birthday today.
Oh, is it? Do you have a piece for me too?
Yes. Here you go.
Keep it down. I'm going to sleep soon.
Taking the cake from Andrew, my husband, David, went straight to the bedroom without looking at me or Emily.
What was that? Not even a happy birthday to Mom.
Well, it can't be helped. It's been like this for years. I don't mind anymore. David used to be a very kind person. We had promised to be good parents together and had Emily. At first, I thought David was trying to be a good father too. He would rush to Emily before I could when she cried and would bring home toys almost every day. But raising a child, for better or worse, takes up a lot of time. David started prioritizing his desires over spending time with Emily. As a result, young Emily didn't become very attached to David. Perhaps because he didn't like that, David began to avoid spending time with Emily even more, eventually only coming home to sleep. No matter how sick Emily or I got, David remained indifferent, and it seemed the emotional distance between us only grew. By the time Emily was in elementary school, the money David provided had decreased, and to support our living and Emily, I worked tirelessly. However, David's behavior and the dwindling money in recent years have been suspicious. Coming home late every day, unusually low savings, the smell of perfume he never used to wear. He's probably having an affair. Or maybe he's hooked on nightclubs. Either way, it doesn't matter. He's long past the point of being forgiven. Yet, he's so clever at hiding it that I can't get definitive proof, and time just passes in this ambiguous state.
I'm sorry, Mom.
It's okay. You don't have to apologize.
All right. If anything happens, let me know right away. Well, I think we should get going.
Thank you for having us.
Sure. Take care. I quietly sighed as I saw them off at the door. We currently live in a separate house on the same property. When Andrew, who had no family, came to live with us as a son-in-law, we decided to build another house on our property, considering David's situation. Even so, we still have dinner together in this house, and we spend more time together than with David. We're so close that I feel there was no need to build a separate house. To me, they are my family, and I plan to continue living with the three of us somehow. However, such a life didn't last forever. One evening, I was driving home after finishing work early for a change when I received a call from Andrew.
Stephanie, Emily has been in an accident.
What?
She was hit by a truck. I was at work when I got the call from the hospital. I'm heading there right now. Bye.
Wait a second. He spoke with a speed I never thought possible for him, and then hung up immediately. What? Emily had an accident? How? Is she okay? I was in a state of semi-panic, but I quickly changed direction and headed to the hospital. I need to contact David. Even though he usually doesn't show much interest in us, I thought surely he would rush over in an emergency involving his daughter. The monotonous dial tone echoed in the car, but it never stopped. No matter how many times I called, he never picked up. It was as if he didn't care about us at all. I even called David's workplace, but they said he had already left for the day. He left work but isn't answering his phone? Where on earth is he during Emily's crisis? Anger welled up inside me, but when I saw Emily's changed appearance at the hospital, none of that mattered anymore. Emily. Is this really Emily? really. When I arrived at the hospital, I was led to a cold room, not a waiting room or treatment room, but a place with several things covered in white cloth. One of the cloths was pulled back, and Andrew was standing next to it. It was unmistakably a person. Red and black wounds on the skin, black hair. But it no longer had a human shape. The sight made me dizzy. It was Andrew who supported me as I almost collapsed.
She apparently saved a child from being hit. It's so like Emily, isn't it?
His hand, which was supporting me, was terribly cold, and his voice was filled with a pained, bitter laugh. That form, barely recognizable, had half of its face intact, making it painfully clear that this was Emily. But if I looked just a little away, what should have been there was missing. While the police officer explained the situation calmly, I couldn't stop sobbing. Why did it have to be Emily? Emily did nothing wrong. Why take her from me? My emotions were in turmoil, and I was so distressed, I couldn't understand what I was saying. But there was nothing else I could do. I felt that if I didn't let out all the tears and emotions, I would lose myself completely. Andrew gently held me, his face contorted with frustration. He occasionally sniffled too. Andrew, who is much younger than me, is trying so hard. What am I supposed to do now? Everything felt meaningless. What happened next was over in a flash. The police investigation found no foul play. It was just an accident, and Emily was hailed as a hero for saving the child. The funeral was incredibly large, and it was quite a challenge. As her mother, it made me a bit happy to realize just how many people admired Emily. Andrew seemed to feel the same, looking somewhat proud. However, during the funeral, there was no word from David. I informed him of the situation only after everything was over. I called you multiple times, you know? I spoke to him as he silently walked in through the front door. David looked a bit surprised as he turned to face me since I hardly ever spoke to him. There were traces of bright red lipstick around his mouth, which made me feel disgusted.
What did you want?
What were you doing?
Work. Don't answer a question with a question. So, what did you want?
I called his workplace again, and they told me David had taken a few days off. Work? Don't make me laugh. But I no longer had the energy to say that. Emily was in a car accident. We had her funeral yesterday.
I see. That's unfortunate.
It felt like a blow to the head. What kind of father talks about his daughter's accident as if it were someone else's problem? No sign of sadness or distress. Shouldn't he be more upset? Yes, very unfortunate. So, what were you doing during Emily's emergency?
I told you work. It's unfortunate about Emily, but I was working. Don't make me repeat myself.
David said that in an irritated tone and disappeared into the bedroom. My hands clenched on my lap. I'm so frustrated. David's behavior showed he felt nothing, even after Emily was gone. And more than anything, I was angry at myself for not being able to say anything back to him. How did it come to this? When did we go wrong? Give me back Emily. I didn't have the energy to go to the bedroom that day, so I quietly fell asleep on the living room sofa with my bad feelings swirling inside me. Since then, The days David came home have clearly decreased. Tonight, it's just Andrew and me having dinner together. The table, full of empty seats, has no smiles. Only a lonely feeling lingers there with a heavy atmosphere. Since then, I haven't been able to do anything and am currently on an extended leave from work. Even at home, I don't do anything, just stare at photos of Emily. Seeing me like this, Andrew often helps with the housework. He frequently expresses concern, but I can only give vague responses each time. I feel a bit sorry for him, but I didn't want to think about anything for a while. Andrew sometimes mumbles as if he's talking to someone, but even that doesn't matter to me. One day, Andrew visited my house before heading to work. In the morning, he's usually busy getting ready, so he typically comes in the evening. What happened? What's wrong?
It's almost over.
What's almost over? Before I could ask, Andrew had already left for work. His unusually firm tone gave me a slight sense of unease. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I figured it must be something work-related, so I didn't think much of it and spent another empty day as usual. That night, for the first time in a while, David came home. He said nothing and headed straight to the bathroom, leaving me with no feelings toward him anymore. Still, due to the layout of the house, I had to sleep in the same room. I quietly entered the bedroom after David had fallen asleep, but I couldn't fall asleep, even with my eyes closed. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, as the clock struck midnight. At that moment, I felt someone's presence in the room. Wondering what was happening, I opened my eyes and saw Andrew standing there. "Why are you here?" Ignoring my question, Andrew pulled me out of bed and forced me into the closet. He then squeezed in with me, closing the door just enough so we could still see the room. The closet was cramped and stifling with both of us inside. "What's going on all of a sudden?"
Keep quiet.
Andrew silenced me with one hand, and I couldn't help but comply. He quietly watched the room through the crack in the door.
It's almost time.
Not knowing what we were waiting for, I complied with him. The room gradually became misty and white. The previously stifling closet air turned icy cold. The mist gathered around David's pillow and slowly took the shape of a woman. What? I recognized that figure immediately. It was Emily. Though not a clear image, I knew it was her. This mist was definitely Emily. As I almost gasped, Andrew covered my mouth with his hand. Emily was muttering something beside David, and as she did, he seemed to be more and more tormented. It looked like she was performing a ritual to make him suffer. Watching it, I felt short of breath and broke into a cold sweat. This went on for a while, and just when Emily stopped moving, she suddenly dissipated and vanished into thin air. The suddenness left me completely confused. David was no longer tormented, but his forehead was drenched in an abnormal amount of sweat, proving that what I had seen was not a hallucination. I turned to Andrew for an explanation.
Not here.
We left the closet and headed to the living room. That was Emily, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Emily, or more accurately, something like her lingering thoughts.
Lingering thoughts.
Yes, when someone leaves something unfinished in reality, they can linger like that.
How do you know that?
I've been able to see things like that since I was a kid.
Andrew explained that he had always had strong spiritual sensitivity and could see things in daily life that others couldn't. This often made his days exhausting, and he apologized for sometimes seeming distant because of it. Apparently, Emily knew about this and was even more drawn to Andrew because of it. It truly felt like something Emily would do. She was always such a curious and fascinated child.
I avoided people because I thought they'd find me creepy for having this ability. But Emily accepted me. So, I decided to stay by her side forever.
Andrew looked nostalgically into the empty space. There was nothing there, but I knew Emily must be there, even if I couldn't see her. I had never believed in ghosts much before, but after witnessing what I had just seen, I couldn't help but believe.
When Emily was gone, I couldn't sleep at all that night. But I felt her presence. At that time, I couldn't see her clearly yet.
I see.
But after a while, I started seeing her clearly. Now, we can even talk.
The times when Andrew seemed to be talking to someone, it was with Emily, whose thoughts had lingered here. It's not just watching over, but actually talking to her. I can talk to Emily again, who I thought I'd never speak to again. But no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't see Emily. I was very envious of Andrew's ability. Did Emily say anything?
The first thing she did was apologize. She said she was sorry for leaving so suddenly.
Emily, it's not your fault. You did nothing wrong. You are a hero who saved a child.
She was very worried about you, Stephanie. She wanted you to recover soon.
There was no way I could recover. Emily was everything to me. She was my reason for living, my only family.
And she was very angry at David. That's why she acted like that tonight, to express her anger. I'm sorry for scaring you.
I see. But why did you put me in the closet?
Honestly, spirits and lingering thoughts are unpredictable. I was worried that Emily's negative emotions might affect you.
I understand. It did feel a bit suffocating. Did Emily have something to do with David coming home suddenly today?
Yes, Emily did something. I'm not sure about the details, but spirits are mysterious, aren't they?
Andrew shrugged his shoulders. I had many thoughts about David and always wanted to confront him. Maybe now is the perfect chance. It's time to settle things in this broken family. Andrew, do you have time tomorrow?
What? Oh, yes, I think so.
Let's put an end to this. I want to have a proper talk with David. Do you think Emily will join us?
She's nodding and smiling widely. She probably has a plan, though I don't know what it is.
That's a reassuring ally. Well, let's get some sleep now.
All right. Oh, and one more thing. Emily really cares about you, Stephanie. So please, don't overdo it.
I understand. Good night. Andrew, and probably Emily too, went back home. I didn't want to return to the bedroom, so I lay down on the living room sofa. Unlike earlier, I quickly fell into a deep sleep. Despite the uncomfortable sofa, it was the best sleep I had in a long time. The chirping of birds woke me up. Pleasant sunlight streamed in through the gap in the curtains. making it a very pleasant morning. As I sat there for a while, lost in thought, I suddenly heard a scream from the bedroom and the sound of heavy footsteps running.
Stephanie, I was wrong. I've been cheating all this time. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
David burst into the living room and immediately apologized with great urgency. I was stunned by the suddenness, but I guessed that Emily must have said something to him in his dream. Why did you do it?
After Emily was born, you were always focused on her. At first, I was just messing around to get back at you, but then it got out of hand.
I see.
I'm really sorry now. I'll never do it again. Emily made me realize. Let's start over as a couple.
David's voice was on the verge of tears. A grown man crying and pleading over his own mistakes was pathetic. It's too late. A man who was cheating even at the end of Emily's life. Do you think I could ever forgive that? My voice came out colder than I had imagined as I responded to David's pleading. David flinched, surprised by my coldness.
But if only you hadn't been so focused on Emily and ignoring me. It's not just my fault, it's yours too.
David raised his voice in desperation, making me tense up. At that moment, the front door opened, and Andrew walked in. Seeing him, or rather the empty space to his left behind him, David started to shake.
Oh, so you can see her, David.
Emily, no, it's not like that. I never stopped caring about you. I was just lonely. I wanted to attend your funeral. I really did.
David desperately tried to explain, but he was speaking to empty air. Yet, I knew Emily was there.
Emily is really angry right now, for Stephanie's sake.
I still couldn't see anything, but David's panic made it clear that this was real. But his shallow words won't make any difference.
I cheated because Stephanie was always focused on Emily. Emily took Stephanie away from me. Why should I have to listen to you?
No father should ever say that his wife was taken away by their daughter. We had promised to raise her together. David was breaking that promise, blaming others, and not understanding his own wrongdoing.
Stephanie, tell her you'll forgive me. Otherwise, who knows what Emily will do to me? Hurry, please.
Even now, he was only thinking about his own safety, and it was truly pathetic. Even Andrew looked disgusted.
Come on, Stephanie. I'm your husband. Emily, I'm your father. Let's talk this through. We'll understand each other.
I'm appalled. How did I stay with this man for so long? I should have realized his twisted thinking sooner. But today, I can finally put an end to this ambiguous life. I no longer see you as my husband or Emily's father. Disappear from my life. The moment I said that, David's eyes widened and he slumped. He stared at the floor with lifeless eyes, muttering something unintelligible. I didn't know what had happened and instinctively moved closer to him.
It's okay.
But Andrew stopped me. Suddenly, I felt as if someone was hugging me from the front. There was only David, now devoid of will, in front of me. But I instinctively felt it was Emily. Even though I couldn't see, touch, or hear her, I knew that Emily was holding me. I felt warmth. Thank you, I said, hugging her back.
I'm sorry.
I thought I heard that voice from somewhere. You don't need to apologize. Of course, I feel very lonely, but I'm happy to feel you one last time like this. Thank you for everything. Be happy." Emily's presence and warmth faded away. Suddenly overwhelmed by loneliness, I reached out desperately, but my hand grasped nothing but air.
"Stephanie, you're incredible. Emily looked the happiest I've ever seen her."
As her mother, I was sure there were more things I could have done for Emily. But hearing Andrew's words made me feel at peace. If Emily is satisfied, that's enough. I'll carry my regrets to the grave. David remained there, his head hanging low and unmoving. After that, we took him to a psychiatrist. Sometimes he would return to his senses, trembling in fear and muttering something again. The doctor, puzzled by these unusual symptoms, ultimately decided to admit him to a psychiatric hospital. Even seeing David, who is now an empty shell, didn't stir any sympathy in me. This was the bond of parental love that Emily had left for David. Well, now that everything is over, I think I'll return to work. This may not be a complete resolution. Emily is gone, and David is broken. From the outside, it might look like a bad ending, but my heart feels strangely refreshed. All the years of suffering over David are finally over. I got to hold Emily one last time. Andrew, with his kind heart, supports me as family. For me, this is a happy ending. I have no regrets left. Technically, I am still married to David. Honestly, I have no intention of taking care of him in the future, but for practical reasons like health insurance and the house, I haven't divorced him. Still, I feel a slight twinge of guilt, so I occasionally check on him. However, since he's in a psychiatric hospital, I can't visit him. He continues to live in fear and apology every day, and it will be a long time before he can be discharged. I don't wish for his unhappiness, but I do hope he atones for his sins. On the other hand, Andrew seemed a bit disappointed that Emily's presence had vanished.
"I can't see Emily anymore, but I'm glad to see you looking much brighter, Stephanie."
He truly is an endearing person. We once talked about our future. "Andrew, you don't have to worry about me anymore. You're free to live your life. There's no need for you to stay in this house."
"That's true, but if it's all right with you, Stephanie, I'd like to stay here."
"Why?"
"Emily always appreciated you. She said she could pursue what she wanted and grow up straight despite everything because of you."
"Emily, that's not true."
"No, I feel the same way as Emily. There's something about you, Stephanie. Your incredible capacity for love. Living here, I've come to think of you as my real mother."
Andrew said this while turning slightly red and looking away. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but laugh, thinking how he really seemed like my own son. He looked a bit disgruntled, but then started laughing with me, maybe finding it amusing too. As our laughter echoed, a refreshing breeze blew through the room. It was a breeze as pleasant as Emily's bright smile.